Help! 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 This went on for about 30 seconds at a Google cafe a few months ago, and the room stayed silent despite being filled with 150 Googlers eating their dinner. We didn't know how to react, myself included. It's hard to help when we don't know. So neurodiversity is a movement that talks about mental health in a different way. Rather than talking about conditions like ADHD, OCD, dyslexia, autism, as necessarily illnesses that need to be eradicated, it celebrates them as differences, like other differences. And with all different people with ADHD or autism, for instance, it's not just about the inability to focus. It's also about talents or strengths. Special strengths to be able to see connections between different complex systems or contexts, or creativity. The thing about disability is, it doesn't mean that you're any less than anyone else. Disability, in fact, is largely based upon context. It's usually based on culture, societal views. When and where you were born defines whether or not you're able or competent to do something. For example, dyslexia is based on a societal value that everybody should be able to read. Well, 150 years ago, that wasn't the case, and dyslexia was unknown. But differences are challenging as well. It does hinder the ability to do things like the typical people, especially in a world that's created by and for the typical or the majority. It can mean challenges in adapting and to be able to do the same things. The inability to focus in an open workspace, or to look at someone straight in the eye when they're speaking to you, in an interview even. These things are challenging, and the key, like every other difference, is to find ways to adapt. Therapy, medicine, counseling, exercise, they work, and those that do adapt tend to succeed more in their work, their life, and family. Some do, but for many, the majority of those that suffer with mental health conditions, they are not adapting well. They are fired, they drop out of school, they break relationships, and sometimes they hurt others, or they hurt themselves. So differences are critical, and including them is critical for us, not just in the world, but also at our workplace. We've heard of diversity and inclusion. Diversity is critical for companies and for Google. Hiring and enabling people of diverse backgrounds or different people is necessary not only for well-being, but it also results in innovative products. It also results in revenue attainment. The studies around psychological safety by our own HR have revealed that it is the #1 factor for team effectiveness. But to feel psychologically safe, you have to first feel safe being you. We've made progress with diversity, but there's still a lot of room to be done. Because diversity is not just what is seen, but it's everybody. We are all diverse. We all have differences. Even the overrepresented white male software engineer, he or she is different too. And that's the problem. When you can't see, it's hard to help. We've heard the stats that over 1 out of 5 of your colleagues are likely to be suffering from one type of mental condition or another. The number is likely even higher. That makes this the largest diversity group. Yet, because we're unable to see, it's hard to help. And it's even harder to help when we think we do know. And that's kind of the root of the problem. For many things, we think we do know. We're smart after all, we're Googlers. We have high GCA. Let me test that. So for those of you in the audience and those of you who are joining by video conference, please go through this exercise really quickly with me. If you're in the room, you can call it out. The key here is think as quickly as possible. Here we go. Come on, we can do better. We're smart. Keep going. quick. For many people, there's no science around this, but some say 90% or more say red hammer. I use this example in my work about UX, where we want to make things as easy as possible and people making decisions really quickly. I asked my own son, he's 4 years old, his name is Joel, and well, he can't do the math, but I just asked him, think of a coloring tool, and he said red hammer. What this tells us is that when we're thinking quickly, we tend to rely on a system of thinking called heuristics, or a shortcut. You may have seen the book Thinking Fast and Slow, and the author did a talk here at Google. He talks about two systems of thinking. Thinking fast, where we quickly use heuristics and shortcuts, and thinking slow, when we're trying to solve a problem and we take the time to figure it out. When we think about the world around us, we tend to think fast. And what fast thinking does is it creates not just these interesting red hammer problems, but it also creates a world with other types of red hammers, like the savant in Rain Man who counts cards, or the sociopaths, or the person with ADD that's running around like crazy, OCD, washing hands a lot, autism, weird. The list goes on. These are the red hammers that create the world that we live in, and these are the ones that make us think about the world and think about differently, even those that are neurodiverse. And that creates stigma and shame. They say that empathy is the cure for shame. As parents, as leaders, as managers, we are helpers. And to help others, we need to listen and care. Someone I managed actually found the courage to come to me and ask for help. She told me about her mental health struggles with OCD. And me, I didn't know much about it. So I researched and I did what any manager would do. Research and try to solve it or fix it or do the right thing. But it was during this research and during this journey I learned about neurodiversity. And it's during this journey that I learned that it was me that also needed help. This is my story. So all of my life, I grew up different. I was a Korean American growing up in LA, and I couldn't figure out why my parents said the things they said. Well, I'm sure that applies to all of us. But as you grow up and we try to process and understand, one of the things that I did was I ended up marrying a girl from Korea, and we moved there together. I worked in the Google Korea office for several years. Learning about the culture there revealed some things to me. I learned that mental health, for instance, wasn't a thing. It didn't exist. Having mental health problems meant you were weak. My parents thought that all weaknesses were unacceptable. In 4th grade, when school told me I needed glasses, they laughed and said, "You don't need glasses." No son of theirs would ever need glasses. Nobody in our family ever wore glasses. I eventually got glasses. But the thing is, they thought I was normal. I thought I was normal because for them, being normal was getting straight A's, and I was getting straight A's. Why did I need help? The next 30 years was a blur to me. It wasn't just about school, but it was about life in general. There are many stats about ADHD that you might have heard about not being able to keep a job or not finishing school, divorce rates, breaking relationship, impulsive behaviors. There's a lot. I'm not going to share the stats with you. If you look at last year's MHC, someone shares it wonderfully. But that was about them. That wasn't me. Well, in the next 30 years, I was fired from 3 jobs, was nearly expelled from high school, dropped out of school multiple times, never finished med school. I was homeless, lost my home, was evicted. The list goes on and on. This is the first time I'm sharing this. But it wasn't ADHD, it was a lot of things. Things called narcissistic personality, bipolar, autism. I crashed so many times, and each time I had to learn how to adapt, and that made me stronger. But the thing is, all along, I knew about the resources, the groups, the help that was out there, but I never told anyone. I even got therapy and started medication, which helped a little, but I still struggled. The thing is, I didn't need help. That was shame. You see, mental health is hard to see, but it's also really easy to hide. Stigma and shame make mental health invisible because even when the world tries to change the policy and the words they use, or new medications or accommodations, it's still hard to speak up. It's not that you're scared that others might think you're that guy, the crazy one. It's that you believe that you are that guy. Shame makes you believe that. For as long as I can remember, I purposely picked a place close to work. When I mean close, I mean a couple blocks or within a mile. And the reason wasn't to save gas. It was because during the day, when I was just distraction and other thoughts, they prevented me from being able to be productive and work like everyone else. So what I pretended, I left. After dinner, I would walk back to work, and I would spend my nights there, 3 to 4 times a week, often till midnight or 1 a.m. It took me 70, 80 hours to do what others could do in 40. And this went on. It even continues today. The thing is, I never thought it was shame. I was just doing what I did my entire life. I was trying to fit in, to be normal. So my journey learning about neurodiversity taught me a lot. Things about learning about inclusion as a manager, the stories shared by my peers and others, they inspired me to share and to do something about this. So I finally told someone, my wife. I told her why I was homeless, why I was jobless, why I wasn't a doctor. And telling her changed everything. I stopped hiding, lying about my doctor visits, my prescription bottles, and she stopped judging me for losing things. But I had to still put a tile tracker on everything. And we were able to not only understand each other, but help each other thrive. We understood our family and others better, like my father. We understood our son. We stopped fearing that he was ADHD, and instead of looking for a cure, we wondered how we can make sure he could be loved, to love himself, and to shine. And my next battle is here at work. Like I said, this is the very first time I'm ever sharing my story outside. Even my manager doesn't know yet. But it's time. Knowing isn't enough. You have to believe it. I thought I knew. I knew better than anybody. I studied neurology and psychology. I took all the manager courses here at Google. But the thing is, shame disables you from believing that you can be loved for who you are. Let me say that again. Shame disabled me from believing I could be loved for who I am. I'm sharing my story today about the things that I wanted to hide the most to take a stand to kill shame. Brene Brown delivered a TED Talk where she talked about vulnerability. In her words, shame cannot survive being spoken. The antidote to shame is empathy. And the most two powerful words, me too. Me too.